Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Justice was served. So my partner and I went to our apartment complex pool/spa area and as we're walking up we hear splashing. Great, lots of people we think. So we take a look. Well, three guys we guess to be about 18 to 21 are throwing the plastic green peach chairs into the pool. Okay, you must be so cool. They see us and stop and start loading up their things in a backpack. We walk over and they go away after a minute of their scrambling and fumbling. I notice there are cameras pointed right at the pool. At least it's been filmed. They get to the outside of the fence and we see them looking with their phone flashlights in the backpack. They come back looking for something and we don't know what. So I start looking for something, anything that shouldn't be in the area. I don't see anything and by the time they come back a third time, they finally say something to us. They are looking for their car key. Huh, what an irony. I get a good look at the three and they are looking for their key. They find it. And the guy that finds it says, "Nick, I'm driving. I'm the most sober." Wow, okay. The whole time I'm trying to figure out how I can get these guys, and it's become clear that they don't live in the complex and that they are just pulling a prank on some random complex. They are also about to be driving, possibly under the influence. My partner says to them, "You better pull the chairs out. There are cameras, and I'll be speaking with the complex manager." One of the guys gets a scared look and says, "Oh, okay. Yeah, totally." They walk away and look at it and the two guys laugh and talk him out of it. Okay, now I'm frustrated. So we get ready to leave to get their license plate number. I get a feeling we should go out the opposite side, where the main entrance is. We do and see a security watch. Of all the times I've seen a security guard, this is the happiest I've been. We tell him there is three guys about to possibly drink and drive that threw all the chairs in the pool and they look underage. We tell him that we're not sure where their car is, but saw where they went. So my partner and I head to the apartment and I sneakily go around the apartments and find their car with them in it. Bingo! So I ran back to my partner and told her I found them. A security guard came from the area where they were parked asking me where they went. I told him what car it was and he asked what apartment we were at and my partner and I went back inside. Our roommate comes home an hour later and says, "Oh my gosh, there is like 3 cop cars over by the pool." So we tell him what happened and I go the sneaky way to where their car was. Still there, best guess one was 21 and supplied the alcohol to the others. Either way, they are in jail. That was last night. Tonight the security guard came back and asked for my name, saying that all 3 went to jail. When I asked the charges, he said they were arrested for trespassing and underage drinking. The oldest was 17 and blew a .27. The middle was 15 and blew a .18. And the youngest was 14 and blew a .17. Sucks for them. Next story. A witch tries to destroy my orchard. I bankrupt her and get her house torn down. Well, let's start a few years in the past. My great-grandparents planted an orchard. It is now at least 120 years old. My grandparents and my parents were really proud of the peach trees growing in it and did their best to keep them in good health and well. We always threw a big party when the peaches were ready to be harvested and invited all of our friends and neighbors to it. The neighbors on the property to the south of our orchard were particularly fond of our peaches. They were a bunch of fine old people and me and the old man, Sam, were pretty good friends. He taught me a lot about woodworking with hand tools only. We had some great evenings in his workshop and we finished many drinks there together. In return, he got a lot of fine peaches, marmalade, homemade peach liqueur, etc. Sadly, he died a good 10 years ago because of cancer. His wife followed soon after and many suspected it was of a broken heart. They had no kids, so all of their property was left to the state, except his tools and whiskey collection, which he had gifted me a few weeks before he died. In comes Karen. The name speaks for itself. Haircut, attitude, witchiness. The whole deal. She bought the property of my late neighbors. We hadn't had the kind of money to buy it at the time, as we had met some dire straits years before, and all our savings were gone. The first thing she did before she actually moved in was to go around and make demands of the neighbors on the surrounding properties. When it was finally our turn to listen to her gibberish, she told us that we needed to remove half of the trees, as the leaves were blowing on her property. We told her in a polite way that we won't comply with her demands, as the orchard is a vital part of our family heritage/tradition/life and has been there for at least 120 years. She was pretty angry but did nothing for the time being. There are some things you need to know before I continue with the story. The workshop I mentioned before was situated right at the border to our property. It was a small timber frame building, at least 160 to 180 years old. The regulations in my state are pretty strict concerning old structures. Every structure over 100 years old is protected, and you need a special permission to tear it down. Failing to get this permission can lead to a hefty fine. To get the permission to build a new building, it has to be up to code, and you have to ask your surrounding neighbors, and if they agree, you're good to go. Except there is one specialty in my county. You have to keep a certain distance to the border of the property to allow emergency services full access to your property. If one of these requirements isn't met, the building is illegal, or at least only partially legal and can actually be ordered by court to be torn down. That might come in handy later. So back to my Karen. After our first encounter with her, she did her best to pester the whole neighborhood. She got the neighbor's dog put down because he allegedly attacked her brat. It later turned out she faked the attack. The dog was the sweetest and most innocent dog you could imagine. A Bernese mountain dog. Big but a real teddy bear. Anyways, she later got us to stop doing our annual beach parties, as she called the police every time for various reasons. Noise complaints, we had a band playing there in the afternoon. Arson, we lit a fire in a designated fire pit in the middle of our property, and she called the ATF on us, allegedly making moonshine. My dad had a license to distill for our own consumption. In short, she was a real pain in the bum, and after 3 years we decided it wasn't worth it to deal with various officers and law enforcement agencies every time we threw the party. We decided to quit. After she had reached this goal, she resorted to pestering us to remove the orchard. We did not give in, and something started to get real fishy. Somehow the tires of our trucks got slashed. Eggs got thrown on our farmhouse. Our cat disappeared and surfaced a few days later in pretty rough condition. It looked like somebody had tried to cut their tail off. Do not worry, he healed up completely, but we actually couldn't prove that she did all of that. Then came the day she made her biggest mistake. She had a company come in a sort of secret operation and tear down the old woodworking workshop overnight. 2 days later, they started building a big garage/recreational center right where the shop was. But she missed one fine detail, which got pretty important later on. She didn't ask for our permission, nor for the neighbors. A short while after, the trees right next to her property started to get sick. The leaves turned brown in the middle of summer, and the branches started to die. We lost 4 trees before we figured out the cause. Somebody had driven long copper nails into them. We had a suspicion, but we couldn't prove it. So we put up some trail cameras, perfectly legal, as it was on our property. We caught her red-handed, and my dad confronted her. She apologized, and my dad, being the way too nice guy he is, wanted to let her get off the hook. But not me. The nail she drove into our oldest tree was the final nail in her coffin. I started to investigate. I had some friends at the administration of our county and asked them to do some inquiries. Turns out she hasn't applied for permission to tear down the old shop, nor for permission to build a new building. I had some friends at the administration of our county and asked them to do some inquiries. Turned out she hasn't applied for permission to tear down the old shop, nor for permission to build a new building. I further did some inquiries on the borderline of our property, and turned out the old markers vanished over time and her building was about 3 feet on our property. After I had gathered all this information, I presented it to my parents. At first they were reluctant as they didn't want to start a neighborhood clash. But after I recalled all the things she did to us and our neighbors, they were in. So let the games begin. First we called the authorities on her for tearing down a protected building and presented them with all the evidence we gathered. Then we called the building authorities on her for building a building without permission, not up to code, and not only didn't she keep the required distance to the property border, she also built on our property without our permission. Long story short, it turns out the workshop hasn't only been protected because of its age, but also because it was a historical landmark, which played a vital role in a conflict back in the 1860s. She got sued for this and had to pay a fine of an equivalent of about $150,000. She further had to demolish her newly built building, costing an additional $50,000. Got fined for this too, about $83,000, and had to rebuild the workshop on her own expense, which was another whooping $154,000. As it had to be period corrected up to the smallest detail, means it had to be built with the correct materials, with hand tools only and to the correct dimensions. As you can imagine, paying professionals to build quite a large timber frame building only by hand gets pretty expensive pretty fast. So all in all, it cost her an equivalent of $437,000 plus further expenses as lawyers, etc. This caused her to go bankrupt, so she had to sell the property in the end, which my parents bought, by the way. Last I heard of her was that she moved back to the big city. Good riddance. Next story. Ma'am, you can't be parking in a loading zone. So I ended up ruining someone's day a while back all over a little sign that reads, "No parking. Loading zone from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday." I was delivering to a larger mixed retail strip mall in a Toronto suburb. The place doesn't have a rear delivery area, so by design there are blocked off areas on the side of the complex to allow delivery vehicles, garbage and couriers access to unload during the day. The place also has a medical center next door. That medical center charges for parking and the strip mall doesn't. So enterprising cheap people will park and walk over, even though a multitude of signs prohibiting the practice are plastered all over the lot. So the complication is that the loading area is closest to the medical arts building, has parking lines laid down but is signed no parking, loading zone from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. Dozens of cube trucks use this lot daily for their needs. However, it is not often that a full-sized semi-me has to use it. I need every inch of that lot to position properly so that I can get the freight off and on my merry way. Often I'll arrive and there is a single car or two occupying a space. They are a bother but can be negotiated around easily. This morning I rolled into the lot when a full-sized Escalade pulled in behind me and parked right beside the loading ramp in the one spot that absolutely ruins my approach. There are literally 50 spots in a loading zone to choose from, and like 500 spots in the actual parking lot. I rolled down my window and motioned I needed to use a ramp. Now most self-aware, self-conscious people will get the hint. Nope. Mrs. Self-Important decided that she's parked, y'all can deal. Unloads her booger eaters into the stroller and obviously ignores me as I'm protesting her parking choice. My parting shot, great example you are setting for your kids, lady, earned me some shade and a casual obscured middle finger salute. Fine then. I have nothing but time on my hands. Rushing around and in a hurry I can solve that for you. Called the towing number on the sign, saying they are less than an hour out, then called my store contact who spotted my reversing. He also called a towing company to complain. With an extra pair of eyes I placed my truck inches from her back bumper, snapped a couple still pictures for liability coverage, and started unloading. Then karma came calling. Self-addressed to Mrs. Self-Important. A compactor garbage truck came through to empty out the mall's bins a little over to the right of Mrs. Self-Important parking spot. After some eye rolls from the garbage truck driver, the empty bin miraculously managed to end up blocking her only passive escape after my tight squeeze parking. Oh heck, she's hemmed in now. So I got a crew of guys unloading me. We're all anxious knowing that crap is gonna hit the fan. Finally, the fruits of our labor ripen. The tow truck arrives, looks at the situation we've created, then is nothing but laughs. He's snapping pictures of the mess, he dolls the wheels of the Escalade and slides it perfectly out and onto his flatbed. 10 minutes and he's gone. Security arrived during the tow out and remained. And sure enough, 90 minutes after leaving, Mrs. Self-Important is returning from the medical center, regrets in tow. Goes from zero to righteous nuclear indignation in an instant. Demands to know where her car is. One of the guys unloading me hollers, "Oh, the one blocking the ramp? It's towed." Her phone is out in an instant, videoing us claiming harassment, theft, damages. She's on 911 in a flash, accusing us of stealing her car. Security quickly intervened, and in the most professionally condescending tone possible explained the signs. They also explained the tow-away loading zone, and the contact for the company who towed it. The region's finest employees show up and take over. I give a quick statement, and the officer basically says, a civil matter. She ends up relenting, defeated, and a taxi is called. I wrap up unloading my truck under her murderous stare. So I'm rolling out and on my way, and I get a text from my dispatcher, "You're stealing people's cars now?" I guess so. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.